trip took us across the continent to Perth, Western Australia. It's a 4.5-hour flight from Sydney, but there we wanted to explore Fremantle, the old convict settlement. Our trip begins at Taree railway station, where we boarded the XPT for Sydney, staying at the Airport Travelodge overnight. Next morning it was wet and cool as we travelled to the airport, but as we took off the sun started to come out. Soon we were travelling high across New South Wales and South Australia, and after 3 hours plus much over the Great Australian Bight, we crossed back over land near Esperance, and an hour or so later we landed in Perth. We soon picked up our car and we settled into our quite nice little loft studio. Our first stop was for the information centre, and we got a map of places to visit. But as usual, we worked our way backwards, starting at the Fremantle War Memorial. Next it was the old convict built prison, and we joined a tour around this huge building complex, and this is actually just one half of it. Found it interesting that when prisoners arrived here they spent the first 9 months in solitary. This prison was only closed in 1996. Not exactly a greatly inviting place. The Jarrah beams used up in the library roof are still in perfect order, and the Anglican and Catholic churches are a bit different to the rest of the prison. The bad boys solitary end up being 23 hours a day in darkness, with lashings being used.
There's a belt that goes around the kidney area to protect your vital organs. Another belt is put around your neck to protect your arteries, because we don't want to kill you, but we want to get pretty close. And then they just start flogging him, this poor bugger. Oh, all available from the gift shop, ladies?
We walked around looking at the many artefacts there are there, including the death mask of John Boyle O'Reilly, famous for organising the Catalpa rescue of the Fenian prisoners. Now, the first stop today was off to the wharf to see where I first touched Australia 49 years before, and then from there we went on to the Maritime Museum. This museum has a great many displays of old vessels and tools. Being a yachty, of course, the best thing for me was the old jug, the America's Cup, and of course Australia too, with her famous winged keel. I also like seeing the old Data General computer that they used, as I worked with Data General and for Data General for around 25 years. Walking around Fremantle, we came to the roundhouse, and this is actually the original jail for the town. Next to the roundhouse is the flagstaff, and Fremantle is one of the few ports that still raise a flag for a ship entering the port, and also lowers a ball and fires a cannon at 1 p.m. Nice beach looking down there. We strolled around to the Shipwrecks Museum to have a look at their favourite wreck, the Batavia. The happenings around this sinking in 1629 make pretty grim reading. The remains of the stern and the aft port hull are still beautifully displayed. Also, some of her bronze cannons have been found and are on display. Now, of course, there are many more displays here of rescued old boats and engines, but this old steam engine, buried in the sand for many years, is now apparently capable of running. And up on the first floor, there are displays of many other artifacts. We then walked back through some of the old streets of Freo. Today we're taking the ferry from Fremantle to the popular tourist spot of Rottnest Island, about 20 kilometres off the coast. It only takes about 30 minutes to get there in these fast boats. First stop, of course, was the bike hire place, but we put the bike riding here nearly in the same dangerous class as Amsterdam, so we headed down some little side roads. It wasn't long before we met up with some of the local quokkas. We followed the old railway up to the top of the hill, where we had great views of the coast. This railway obviously brought up the armaments from the store, as up here there was a lookout and also a large gun emplacement. Heading back down the hill, we passed the old army buildings, and we also watched as the rail car, the Captain Hussey, run as a tourist attraction. We cycled a few more kilometres to Henrietta Rocks. Nice views, but judging by the wreck here, it may be a bit ordinary in bad weather. Surprisingly, the island is not flat, and it's got some really good hills for cycling. Back at the settlement, we had lunch at the hotel, and then we walked across to the area that had been used as the Aboriginal Prison. From there, we sat down and contemplated while we waited for our ferry. Now today was going to be a nice day for a bushwalk, so we're going up to the John Forrest National Park to walk around to the old railway tunnel. The walk starts at the Eaglesview car park and follows the old railway track through the bush until it arrives at the old tunnel. We'll walk through the tunnel and then we'll return back, crossing over at the Waterfall to another nice track on the way back to the car. From the car park it's only a few metres to the bridge where we can join the old trek. There used to be a very popular railway station here, but there's only the foundations to be seen today. But this really is a great cycle path and walkway, and even during the week there were quite a few people on it. We turned off onto the waterfall, but as we had expected, at this time of year it had no water. There was an accident in this railway, and the information sign tells all about it. Some really nice hills around here. Finally, the tunnel comes into view. The tunnel looks like it's in very good condition, but we will need a torch as the floor is quite uneven. The cutting continues for a short while after the tunnel, and from there we can start our return back along the track, crossing over at the waterfalls. More the sort of track that I enjoy. It was a very enjoyable walk, and now we go for lunch at the nearby hotel and a stop at the lookout to the city. It looked like the expected rain was going to miss us, so we drove to the King's Gardens after lunch to walk around the Botanical Gardens. Now these gardens actually speak for themselves. They've built a great walkway and bridge in order to protect the actual environment here. And there are nice views from it. Now the old Swan Brewery is now apartments. Later that evening the weather improved, so we took a walk along the coast to watch the sun go down. We decided that we should take a cruise up to Perth along the Swan River, but we were surprised to see 3 ships docked there. Is this the end of the world? Sorry, bad pun. Our boat arrived and we headed up past the cruise ships. Obviously the coronavirus scare was frightening a lot off.
So today, I've been coming down here for 20 years. This is the first time I've ever seen 3 cruise ships in harbour at the very same time.
Soon we went under the rail and road bridges and continued our way up the river. Lots of very expensive houses along this waterfront. After an hour, the city comes into view and we pass the old Swan Brewery with the Botanical Gardens behind. Once we had docked, we walked up past the bell tower and around to the Mint to take a look. After that, we strolled back through the park, grabbed some lunch and waited for a ferry back to Fremantle.